This is my final major project evaluation. In this evaluation, I'm going to be talking about what went well in the whole project, what I felt like could have done better, and overall just sort of talking about how I felt it went and improvements that could have been made. These are really helpful evaluations, not only because obviously you have to do it, but they allow me to like reflect on what I've done and help me improve in the future. So to start with, I'm just going to talk about each stage of the project and how I got to like how I where I am now, where I finished everything, and just talk about sort of what techniques I used to do that and to do it in sort of what I felt is the best possible way. So the first thing we done over, I think it was the Easter holidays, is we were just told to think of our idea. I had a few concepts in mind beforehand, just like some sort of ones that I really wanted to do over the last year. I've really wanted to do it, and I've just been waiting for the right time, and I felt like it was the right time to sort of base my idea around like a post-apocalyptic genre. I've always wanted to do something like this, and I felt like over these holidays I came up with a few ideas that really helped me build on that. Now, admittedly, I don't think my strength is idea thinking. I definitely prefer the camera work. I want to be a cameraman when I'm older. That's sort of why I came into this course. So my strengths aren't the editing or the thinking of the ideas and all the audio stuff. I just like getting with a camera and just filming. But I had a bit of a help from some people just sort of coming up with the ideas, but mainly the whole like main of the bulk of the idea was mine, which is probably why it probably isn't the best, but I really wanted to focus on the cinematography in this one. So yeah, over these holidays I came up with this idea, in which I then talked about in the first thing we done back at college, which was the project proposal. Now basically in this we just talked about our idea. Obviously this bit is talking about the progress we've made on the course so far, but then here we talk about our idea. You see like post-apocalyptic, and I just sort of summed up sort of what I was going to be doing. Basically, in short, it's about a boy sort of around my age who's sort of what you see him as he's like in this outbuilding all by himself, and he's sort of trying to fend for himself, and it shows that there's been like an unknown sort of disease that has just wiped out everyone, and he's basically on a journey to try and find like civilization and try and just find someone that he can sort of relate to, because he's literally by himself and out alone, and basically just follows a small like a whole day period of like his journey on trying to do this, and it's sort of in the middle of the short film it toys with the idea of him killing himself, because obviously in this situation, if you were put in this situation in real life, it would be very depressing. I learned this from my research, which I will talk about, but you would toy with the idea of killing yourself when you're like this, if you feel like there's no hope. So I felt like it was a really important bit to include. Obviously, I didn't have a proper actor, so in the final short film, it might not have come across as like this really like emotionally like building scene. But I feel like that's something I can always work on. But I really wanted to use that, and then it finishes with him actually killing himself, which I feel like is quite a nice shot. I actually, to be fair, messed up quite a lot, which I will also talk about. But all these sort of things I'm sort of learning from, so next time I go and do these things I now won't do them, which is sort of really handy. But overall I feel like it went well. So basically this is just a project proposal. This is the bibliography of the links, and then this is my calendar of what I was sort of doing. So I'll talk about these individually in more detail, so we don't need to go over that now. So yeah, basically this is just the first sort of thing we've done. And then getting on to different things. The first thing I then went into once we'd done that was task 2, which was the research. So I'll start with probably the most relevant one, which is finding my target audience. I felt like before I started properly building up on my idea, I had like my idea obviously, but before I started going into proper details on it, I wanted to find out my target audience, as I felt like the target audience has a big say on like what you include in a short film. For example, if you were told to create a post-apocalyptic film, but the target audience for it was under 13-year-olds, you could still do it obviously, but you'd need to keep it very tame and like not have many gory scenes or no swearing or not too emotional. Have it like quite uplifting, if that's even possible with this sort of genre. So it's really important to understand sort of what sort of people are most interested in this sort of genre. As you can see here, I was looking through all sorts of forums and just trying to find people's opinions. And I came across this one. There was a lot of bad ones, by the way. There were a lot of bad opinions that I really just didn't agree with. But this one, I thought like it had a lot of evidence to sort of back up why it would be that sort of audience. And they ended up basically saying that it was for males, teens and adults around 18 to 45. Now I really agree with that. However, due to the sort of storyline that I went for, like I didn't include much gore, there's not really much action in it. I felt like it could also be just as entertaining to females as well as males, but I wanted to keep sort of the age range the same, due to sort of like it's not exactly an uplifting film. It is quite depressing, so I don't think people under the age of that would like particularly enjoy it at all. So just this stage was just really helpful in terms of being like a good starting point for the project. Like if I hadn't have done this to start with, I could have come up with the whole thing and then realised, wait, no one for the age that I've created this for would actually wants to see it. And then I'd have been like, why didn't I just do this first? So it's a really good starting point. Just going through here, all sorts of sort of research I've done, such as selecting music for my short film. Now, you could say this is pre-production work. It ended up sort of being pre-production work. Let me just find it. Here it is. So yeah, this could be classed as pre-production work because obviously it's like you preparing for your production, like you're getting music together. But I started sort of just looking at sort of what sort of music. I watched a couple of short films, and I was just looking at what sort of music sort of usually comes up when under this sort of genre, and it tended to be like a lot of slow instrumental music that was quite emotional, quite sad, usually with the violin, which I found was quite a repetitive theme. So a lot of these songs here include that, and then a few others I was just looking at different sound effects to help like add to a scene. But then more research here. I've done one of the main things that I thought would be most useful in this research phase. Obviously, once I found my target audience, was to actually do some case studies on different things that would just really help it. So here, as you can see, I don't know where the picture's gone. There's normally a picture there, just of someone's costume. I looked into The Island by Bear Grylls. I watched this in my own time. I really enjoy it. And it just made me think about my character. Obviously, he's living out in the rough. It's going to be very similar to these people in the island. So if I sort of like done a case study on the island and just sort of found out like how long they've been there to get their clothes in what condition, it would give me a really good idea of making my character look as realistic as possible. So all these sort of like mini case studies, I've done some more. I'll get them up now. I've done one on the road. I also done one on this short film called Oddsock. Now, this film is actually created by someone I think in year 2. I'm not too sure. But basically, it's about one character. I'm not going to go much too into the storyline. It's completely different to my storyline, but it did include a character who possesses clothing very similar to what I wanted my characters to look like. He was obviously very scruffy, as you can see in these images here. And that's something I really wanted to include. And the colours I noticed in all of the sort of short films I watched that were very similar to mine. All the clothing was all dark colours. Like there were no bright colours, obviously, apart from the sock here. But like the main bulk of the clothing is always like these like dark greens, these dark greys, and these blacks. So just all very dull and boring colours. So just doing these bits of research is really helpful, actually. And then going on to more research here. This is more primary research. And I think it's just here. Let's just find it. Here we go. This is more primary research. I actually got hands-on with some equipment that was really, really helpful, actually. Probably the most helpful out of all the research I've done in terms of for the actual day of filming, because some of this equipment I haven't actually used before. So due to like not having much time when actually filming, it can be difficult if you are using equipment that you haven't used before and you're struggling to use it and set it up. And overall, if you're not used to something, it's very hard to get like the best results out of it, which is why I definitely wanted to book out a lot of equipment beforehand. Just on like a couple of days of college where I didn't have too much to do because I was on top of everything. I thought it'd just be a perfect time to just book out some equipment and just practice it out in the sort of foresty area at the back with a couple of my mates also doing the course, and it was really helpful. Here we tested the dollies. Now I wasn't sure what would be more beneficial, the dolly on tracks or the dolly on wheels. They're both very good. They both do exactly what they're supposed to do. However, due to the sort of locations that I was filming at, the dolly on wheels is useless because it's only good on really smooth surfaces. Obviously, the positive thing this has is very mobile and very smooth on the smooth surfaces, whereas this, you can see you're restricted to just one line, but it's very good on rough surfaces, which is what I was using in order to get this shot. Now, despite doing all this with this certain equipment, I actually wasn't able to use it on the day of filming because someone hadn't given it back in time, I think. It wasn't a massive problem, just a bit frustrating, but what can I do? But overall, I'm still happy I've done the test. Next time I'll know what I'm doing. And I didn't just do tests with this bit of equipment, I've done it with a lot more stuff, which I'll get onto now, if I can find it. Give me a second. I've done some with the Steadicam, which I am now trying to find on here, but I can't see it right now, but I'll get back to that when I find it. Here's the case study on the road that I was talking about. Wait, I've still got it up here. Here we go. Let's just full screen this. Basically, I got this film recommended to me. For some reason the pictures aren't showing up here. There are some pictures here, as you can tell. They're just a few close-ups of one of the main characters in it. They're not vital that you see it. One of them was a long shot of the character on the beach. It was a high-angle long shot, making the character look very small. But basically, I had this short film recommended to me by my cousin, actually, who, when I was explaining my idea to him, he said that this was a really sort of film that sort of would contain a lot of things that I could use in mind, such as the characters and also the storyline. The storyline was actually followed a journey of a boy and his dad trying to get down south to escape this sort of post-apocalyptic. It was basically freezing cold, killing off a lot of people, very little food and water supplies, regular like earthquakes and stuff that were happening, and basically it was just a really good film to sort of watch and get an idea of like what music they use and what costumes they use. So yeah, this obviously was very helpful. Another case study was helpful. While talking about my cousin, I also, in my short film, I saw in a different short film called Elegy, there was a scene where it was a newspaper cut out on a wall, sort of explaining the storyline, and I really wanted to use this, but I'm not the best at sort of creating them sort of things. So I know my cousin does them sort of stuff, so I asked him to do it, and that ended up getting into my short film. So that was really handy that I managed to do that. And then just more on the research, I started sort of designing my character. I'm really into sort of games. I play a lot of games, and one of my favourite games of all time is The Last of Us. And the second I thought of post-apocalyptic genre, I instantly went to The Last of Us as one of my favourite games, like I said. And I started looking at the character, Joel in particular, because he's a man like in my character. And I just started looking at his clothing, and obviously you can see that it's very like, messed up, dirty and sort of creased and all that. And it really just gave me a good idea of, what characters look like. But I also wanted to look at his personality. If you've seen the short film, his personality is of someone who you can tell has lost someone he loves. Like, that sounds really emotional, but if you know what I mean. And obviously in my short film, he hasn't particularly lost them because, well, he actually has. That's exactly what he's done. He's lost them, but like not as in they've died or they might have died. He doesn't know that, but his personality in my short film is going to be like he's someone who's just like lost all his family. He's like got very little hope. He's very little happiness going on in his life. So this character was like a really good one to sort of base that off of. And then as you go further down, I was just sort of looking at different props that could be used in my short film. Didn't go into too much detail. The lighter was something that I thought I might have used, but I didn't in the end. The compass actually became very key part in one particular scene. It just sort of helped show like that he doesn't have a clue where he is, and he's trying to like find his bearings. And then a gun, which also became probably the most important prop in the whole film, as obviously that's what he eventually kills himself with. So obviously doing this character research early on was helpful. And then I just done a quick mood board. See, this is pre-production. I'll talk about this in a bit. One thing I do want to find is color correction tests. Now, this is classed as pre-production, but this was also research, so I'm going to talk about it now. I yeah, again, found myself in the afternoon with a bit of time to sort of practice with some stuff. So this is actually linked with the Steadicam. I think I might have talked about it somewhere else as well, but as you can see, this footage here, I have a link to the footage here. It's just some practices with the Steadicam. Really enjoyed the Steadicam actually. Having that little practice really helped me get an idea of like the best way to use it, and I did end up using it well as the main piece of equipment for my final short film. But here I had an idea of like a really bleak surroundings in my short film, so I started playing about with the color correction, and as you can see, we actually used like really vibrant settings on the camera just to show like how much you can change it in post-production. So obviously you can see here it's very vibrant. If you saw that in a post-apocalyptic genre, you wouldn't sort of believe it. It would look a bit too like nice. So I really wanted to sort of dull it down, and then I ended up with this sort of really dull looking background with the grass looking very dull, and I just felt like it just made the scene look a lot darker and just like not as happy. Like it looks like quite a depressing scene. Well, personally anyway. So obviously this was just a quick little test I'd done that was quite helpful. In terms of more of this sort of research, I'm actually done a questionnaire which I am now trying to find. But as I've just, here it is. I've done it on the character's appearance. It's still here actually. Character appearance questionnaire. I felt like because my short film is based on one character, it needed to be, I needed to get his costume spot on basically, because that's what you're seeing the whole way through it. And if it doesn't look realistic, then people aren't going to enjoy the short film whatsoever. So I wanted to get an idea of sort of what a bunch of people in my group thought about what they'd expect a character to see, and I ended up going with the theme of like a homeless person. Like obviously my guy's homeless, and they're probably more familiar with like seeing homeless people, so I wanted to know what they expect of them. But the first question I asked here was, what colour comes to mind when you think of a post-apocalyptic setting? Now, I wasn't sure like what people would say in this. I was expecting like dark colours because it's just quite an obvious one. I wanted to just double check that that's what people thought, and as you can see, a lot of people are saying dark green, like browns, greys, dark colours like grey, black, dark colours like grey, black, black. So quite a lot of people sort of had the same thought process as me. Now this is a controversial one because I asked her, what would you expect a homeless person to have facial hair? And 14 people said yes. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm 100% having my character having facial hair. But then the more I sort of went into details about my short film and like why the apocalypse had come about in my short film, it was because of a disease. And I felt like a really good way of showing that there's something in the air that's not good is to have my character's face covered apart from the eyes, which is what I've done in the end. So you couldn't have well, actually you could tell, because in the last scene he does take it down if he has facial hair, and I ended up couldn't get an actor who actually had facial hair. Problems with being 16 and not having many friends who actually have beards. I could have got an actor, I guess. That's one thing when looking back on it. I think that I could improve. I possibly should have actually gone to the extra effort of getting a proper actor and paying them, because you just get that better end result of like a more realistic looking scene. Like for example, when I was saying at the end with the shooting himself scene, you couldn't get the best emotion because my mate who I was using, he was good. He'd like done exactly what I told him to do, but you just couldn't like portray like the exact emotions that you would be feeling in that certain moment in time. So looking back on it, that's something that maybe next time I can definitely improve on. But overall, I feel like he done a good job. And yeah, like I was saying with this questionnaire, a bit controversial. I didn't use someone with facial hair, but I don't think it was too much of a problem. And then I wanted to find out about like what sort of like a main item could be. I feel like in every sort of film like this, there needs to be like a main thing that he keeps reverting back to. And I gave 3 options. I said a map of local area, lighter, and a weapon, like a gun or a knife. This was very split. Most people saying a weapon as expected. That's sort of like the easy answer. And I was always going to include a gun. I had a lot of scenes thought out where a gun was quite an important piece. And then, surprisingly, the lighter came second, which I ended up not using, but I did sort of use it, if that doesn't make sense. But basically, I didn't use a lighter, but I used a fire, and I used a petrol canister. And the lighter was always going to be just to show like how little light he gets and like what he does when it is nightfall. And I ended up having a scene where the fire is already lit when the scene comes across to it, so it leaves the audience guessing of how he lit it, like what his technique is. But then you see him having a petrol canister and he's just pouring it on, and that's how he's making the fire bigger. And then instead of the torch, I did technically instead of the lighter, I had a torch, like a fire torch on a long stick, which I felt was like one of my favourite shots in the film was actually this, because I just really like the way it was shot. And yeah, and then third with 14.3% people saying a map of local area. But the good thing about the map was that it showed that he was lost and he was trying to get to somewhere. And I felt like the film reverted back to this map quite a lot, which is really good, is what I wanted to happen. And I'd say this is probably the main prop in it, in terms of that's my character's little way of sort of coping, like just keeping marking on a map to try and like find his way around places. So yeah, this questionnaire was really helpful. And then the final question was, what clothing comes to mind when you think of a homeless person? Obviously, again, basing it off a homeless person. A lot of people saying like ripped clothes, oversized clothes, and I definitely used this in my final piece. On the jumper was ripped that I used my final piece, and it was a bit too big for him. And just little things like this, which I felt like came across quite well in the final film. And then what else have we got? More research here. This was on the post-apocalyptic genre. This was actually one of the things I'd done first as well. I should have looked at it earlier on. But I basically wanted to just learn more about the post-apocalyptic genre. And the most effective way of doing this was going on the old Wikipedia. It gave me a really good idea of sort of the main sort of ways post-apocalyptic things, like the causes of them in films. So as you can see here, if you read it, it says here that people, the main sort of causes can be from like human actions, just nature actions like volcanoes or earthquakes, etc. So this is just a really good way of sort of finding sort of what people perceive the apocalypse at. Here you can see an Albert Goodwin painting of what he perceives the apocalypse as. And obviously this is a bit over the top in terms of I wouldn't be able to do this in filming, but it just shows that, you know, everyone perceives it as just this complete wasteland of just emptiness, which is something that I tried to include in mine. Like, no one was about. It was always like quite an open area where just nothing was happening. So I feel like looking at this was quite helpful. Going back and like talking about this, I could have possibly done more research on the genre. That's something that I definitely should have possibly done. I'm not sure how much it would have helped me, but looking back at it now, I didn't really do that much on it. So that could be something that I improve on in the future. And then I think that's mainly it for the research. And now we get on post-production. Now, the main part of post-production that I always go to first is a storyboard. I've done a lot of storyboarding for this one. I'll just get the first page up as an example. So here you can see, this is just my one of the pages of the storyboard. I like to go into a bit of detail. I'm not too bothered. I know you should be, because a lot of people use them as like a really good reference point. But I don't really look at the pictures in the storyboard as much. They don't seem to help me. I always have a vision in my head through just the writing. So I was trying to go into a bit of detail so I could look at the writing and just know exactly what I wanted to do in that scene. And I think I managed to do that with the short film. That's why I went in for a very in-depth storyboard. I ended up doing about 9 pages. I wanted to include every shot in it. So on the day I knew exactly what I was doing. And that was definitely very, very helpful. And probably the best bit of pre-production work I'd done. And then it was just, I already have this open somewhere. Let me just find it quickly. Location mood board. Now, pre-production is all planning for your short film and finding locations. Some say that's for the research, like researching locations. But I didn't really think about locations until I got to this point. I obviously had a few in mind. And the first thing I'd done before I looked at any locations was I went on Google and I just simply typed in post-apocalyptic settings. and it came across with these like it all seemed to be like these very like open areas that were just like look like wasteland. So here you can see like just an empty road that doesn't look in best condition, a forest obviously, no one there, and then just an empty road. And this is something that I definitely wanted to include in mine. I have quite a few scenes in mine where it's like an empty road or a forest, and then as I scroll down, here is an outbuilding. This was like a similar vision to what I had in mind of the outbuilding that I was using, and it did actually end up being very similar to this. And then above it you can see Eye Castle. Now this is a location I actually used the exact one. I've always known about this place, but as you can see to the left of it, I wanted to use this. There's in my village. There's one of these, but it's in a bit a bit of a worse condition than that. And I went and visited it actually, and realised that it was just too dangerous to use. And I wanted to find an alternative to it. And in this castle, when you got up the top, there's this little ladder like this that goes into one of these at the top. So it was sort of a good second alternative, and also the scenery of the Eye Castle one is a lot better. Like, it's obviously completely ruined, which is exactly what like a post-apocalyptic setting would be like. So it ended up being perfect for what I wanted. And then the wheat field, I used a rape field. I always had a picture in mind of just having him walk through there. Showing it all overgrown around him, like, you know, no one's sort of there to sort of keep it in check. So that was just something I used. And then I had visions of using like a scrapyard and an abandoned railway, but I didn't end up using that. I wasn't necessary in the end. Maybe it would have been something nice to include, but I feel like my short film was okay without them in it. Obviously, if I had them there, you know, accessibly, I would have definitely used them. But, you know, it's not always that easy when you have a very little budget and live in the middle of nowhere. You know, you don't always have these things available. But that would have been something very cool I could have used. And then looking at more pre-production work, I done a script. This was really good to go into details. If I just try and find it now. Where did I put the script? Here you go. Script for Final Major. Oh, okay, it's already open. Brilliant. Script for Final Major, here we go. I'd done this after the storyboard. This was sort of even more detailed. As you can see, I went into even like what's being written in the diary at the beginning, and this was actually very, very helpful in terms of planning out exactly what I wanted to do. I took this and the script along with me on the day of filming. This and the storyboard along with me on the day of filming. This was my main sort of source of knowing exactly what I had to do, and yeah, this took me quite a while to sort of get it all down in writing, but it was very, very helpful. But that was just the main sort of bulk of it I done in pre-production. Obviously, there's all like the consent forms and the equipment checklist, which I have out in paper form. I'll talk about them. Like the locations, the location planning or whatever you call it in the pre-production, where you sort of scale out different, like where like a door would be placed and where the camera would be placed. They're sort of helpful. I don't tend to use them on the day of filming. I sort of I create them and then I get that vision in my head, but it's not necessary because I do like being creative on the day. I don't like having everything just so like I've got to place the camera here and have you right there. I like to on the day like making that judgment call. Obviously, it's nice to have a bit of an idea so you're not just wasting loads of time. But I do like to be able to sort of make the judgment on the day. So that's not like the most important thing for me in terms of like pre-production work. I'm just looking through here now. Pre-production, this is the equipment list. I already have that open as well. Let's just find it quickly. Here it is. This is just sort of getting an idea of what I was going to use and why I was going to use it. So camera, very important obviously if you want to do any sort of filming. I know that you get a better quality on the Blackmagic, but for obviously the Final Major is a very important project, and I just felt that I want to use something that I know I can use and know all the settings on it. Blackmagic will be something I want to over the holidays. If you can book out equipment over the holidays, it's definitely something I want to book out and give it a go because it does look very cool. And I've seen the final images you get with it, and they're very good. But I thought for this project it'd be best to just play it safe, use something that I know how to control and operate. And then second, already sort of talked about it. By far the most important thing in any short film, in my opinion, apart from the camera, obviously, is the Steadicam. These create incredible shots, and you can move about with them as much as you want. They do take a lot of time to sort of get used to it. I'm still not completely used to it. Like, I haven't used it that much. Looking back, that's something that I probably should have done more over previous projects. Booked it out and just constantly just keep using it and just keep getting better at it. I feel like I'm at sort of a 70% stage where I sort of know how to use it to its best potential. I still haven't got like the twisting it down in a smooth action like completely right, but I can definitely sort of walk back with it and like move it about and get a really nice smooth shot. I used it for over 80% of filming this short film. And the mic, obviously a very important part if you want good audio. I really enjoy using this Rode mic. It's very easy to just plop on the top of a camera. Obviously there's different mics, so you can use a boom pole for it and get closer to the action. But I didn't have much crew, and to be honest, I didn't need it. This mic's really good for picking up audio outside and inside, so I didn't see any reason to have to get someone else just to hold a boom pole to get it closer. I feel like this was just fine. And then the dolly tracks, I already talked about these. Very good idea. Didn't get to use it, so can't really talk about it too much. And then the tripod. These tripods are amazing. They're really helpful. If you want that, if you don't need to be if you don't need to have many movements in a stern shot in terms of like forward and backwards, they're very good for like still shots and panning shots. In particular, one panning shot I used at the beginning. If you want a long panning shot, this is what you need to use, because it's not hard to just get it in a completely smooth motion for a long time. It's very easy to use. And then finally, the lighting. Now, this was important, but I didn't need it as much as I thought I might have maybe needed it. I felt like when I was doing my first scenes in the outbuilding, I thought I might need this light because I thought it might be too dark in there, but it ended up being fine. So I actually only ended up using this light for the night scene, and it did work quite well. It done what it needed to do. Possibly the light was a bit too bright. I wanted it to look like it was light from the fire, but I felt like it didn't really do that, to be honest. But it sort of done the job. It lit up the scene enough to sort of know what was going on. So overall, it was an important piece of equipment. And then that's just sort of the main bit of the pre-production. Overall, if I do a conclusion and sum up right now of what I've done so far at this point. Obviously, I was doing vlogs. There's a link to the vlogs somewhere that I private messaged to one of the tutors, which is good, which was very useful to do them. But overall, I feel like pre-production, I've done a lot of research. I don't think there's much I wanted to change for the research. It really set me up well for knowing about my short film and what I wanted to include. I feel like I could have done some more in the pre-production section. I feel like I've done enough, but I feel like I could have done more. Like, I could have done a little bit more to just give me that little more bit of help. Pre-production is basically just giving as much help as you can to when you come to film, and I feel like I could have given myself a little bit more. Could have done a little bit more tests. I've done a lot, but I could have done a little bit more. But overall, I feel like at this point in the project, I'd done what was required in order to get a good final piece. And then going on to the filming. Now, I don't need to get anything up from this. I suppose actually that's a complete lie. I can get up the film. I'll get that up now quickly. I'm not quite sure where I saved it. This isn't it. Nope. Pretty sure it was saved down here. If not, I know what I can do. It is recorded on my YouTube channel. Under Hamsey Productions, which is what I call myself, but not really. Just get this up now. Here it is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just play a couple of scenes. I'll pause it every now and then and just talk about what was going through my mind on the day, what I felt like I could have done better. And yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll just play it through. Might not go the whole way through, but we'll see. No. This is the first shot. Have no complaints. Possibly could have got a little bit smoother. I'm pretty sure it changes pace. Just about there, it gets a bit faster. Maybe I could have got the panning a tiny bit smoother there. But overall, it's not that noticeable. It's not much of a problem. And then just another panel shot here. And then one thing that was actually picked up here, one thing I must say that I do enjoy from this is I really like the colouring. This was obviously all done in pre-production, which I'll talk about in a different bit of this vlog, evaluation. But I'm really happy with the colouring. And then one thing that was picked up by one of my tutors is one thing that I probably should have done or could have done a bit better was change up the angles. I felt like when I was doing it, I felt like I was doing it quite a lot. But looking back at it, I could have definitely mixed up even more, just to make the shots look a bit more interesting, which is, you know, what you need in a short film like this. Here you can see it looks a bit like badly acted, the way he sort of waits for the camera to come down and then goes to write it. All these little things I didn't really notice on the day. Possibly should have had someone else just sort of looking at it and just double checking everything looks okay. But you know, what are you gonna do? And then here's what I was talking about. This was the newspaper cutout that my cousin created. I told him obviously what I wanted to have included in that, and then he just done it for me. This shot was actually different. I'd done it on the day of filming, obviously, and when I got it in pre-production, it just looked a bit rubbish. I used a Steadicam, and it was quite a fast scene. I was a bit too quick. It wasn't slow enough like this is to sort of get a full idea of what it says. So I went back the next day and I filmed it again. Definitely prefer this version of it. And here the next few scenes are just him collecting the different props that I planned out for it. I actually really, I do like that this filler shot that I got here. If I can find it, this one. I like the way it sort of, I done it in post production, made it look, the panels look really dark and then like have it quite vivid on the outside. I do quite like this filler shot. And then here was quite, I feel like quite an important scene. It gives the audience an idea of that he's sort of looking back at old photos of himself and his like sisters, to show that he just does miss them, and he's holding on to what he has left of them. I feel like it was quite an important scene to include. Yeah, and then here it's obviously this intro has been him packing to go on this journey, and I wanted to make it quite have quite a lot of shots in it showing like different things. I wanted to sort of make it seem like a really important stage of the short film, and I feel like I've done that quite well. I really like that this location was actually perfect for what I wanted to do. As you can see here, everything around it looks really dull and old and messed up. So yeah, I feel like that looks quite cool. This is the shot I was talking about that I used the tripod for. Looking back at it, I think this is one of my favourite shots of the whole film. I really like the angle and sort of the surroundings. It's quite a long shot, and this is sort of where the title of the film comes up, so quite an important shot really. Now in terms of the name of the short film, I didn't really spend much time thinking about it. I knew I wanted to have it something to do with, you know, Alone, but I knew Alone was a title of a different post-apocalyptic short film. Didn't want to use the same thing, so I just tried to think of words that obviously related to that. And Isolation, I came up with. I felt like it sort of sums it up quite well. He is literally isolated by himself, so I feel like that was quite a good title for it. So yeah, it was just in terms of the font, this Telegraphico font This Telegraphico font that I use it for everything now. Like, I just really like the font. It looks quite professional. It's quite bold as well. It stands out. So yeah, I do use that for a lot of short films I create. Now, this shot here, I wanted to get in early that I wanted to show early the fact that he doesn't have a clue where he is and he's trying to locate something. So I thought if I got that in early, it would give the audience an idea of what's happening in this short film from like right at the beginning, which was good. I feel like I could have worked on the audio bit here. It is a bit sort of plain. I could have added some more background noise, something like when you look back when you finally completed it, you realise that why didn't I do that? That's such an obvious thing to do. But there we go. I feel like it still looks like quite it's an alright scene, to be honest. Now one other thing that was picked up on, another thing that I actually I could say a mistake I made on the day of filming was I hadn't got many filler shots. I was so focused on just filming, what was really necessary with my actor, or should I say my mate. I didn't do many filler shots. Now this was picked up on quite quickly, so I thought, I need to do more. So I booked out the camera again. I used a tripod I have at home. It's not as good quality as the tripod there, but it would do, considering someone else had booked out all the main ones. And I just went with a car and just went to all these different locations again and just got loads of filler shots so that it wasn't all just like focused on the character. That was pointed out that it was too character focused, so it did get a bit boring, and it just seemed like you were just following his boring day. I agree that, hence why I went out and got loads more. This was one of them. And then here's a scene. Obviously, he's looking at compass. I'll show a close up in a minute, showing that he's like trying to get his bearings. Now these are just like, these are the things I just enjoy. Like, this is the main reason I took the course. I just like getting a camera and just trying out different angles and shots, which is why, you can see here I had a close up of a compass. Like, I really wanted to try and get a real close up, and then you can see here he's like when he's like looking like it's a low angle of like his back and his bag, and I just like sort of trying to create these different angles and make it look quite different, and that's what I really enjoy doing, and that's why I want to be a cameraman when I'm older. And then here I use that fade out in post-production to sort of show that it's the same it's not that much later in the day, and it sort of links in with the scene before, but it's not like straight after. And I feel like that done it quite well. And then here is where you get to that castle that I was talking about. I actually really like this location in terms of, for this genre short film, it worked really well with it. I'm just going to let this whole scene play out and then I'll talk about it afterwards. Just quickly, I know I said let it pan out, and this is sort of more post-production, but while I'm here I might as well talk about it. I got shown this effect on Premiere, which is a very simple effect. It's just called high pass or bypass, I think, and it's basically you just slap it on a bit of footage. If there's too much wind, in this scene the mic did pick up a lot of like wind damage, and I stuck this effect on it. I didn't have high hopes for it. I thought, how good can it be? And despite you can hear like a lack in quality, sort of everything sounds a bit high pitched and not amazing, but it done the job that I really needed it to do, which was get rid of the wind. It would have looked really awkward if I had have had like just no audio there. So for how simple it was to do, it was very, very handy. So yeah, let's continue. Now, this scene, I was worried, and I'm still worried that people aren't going to understand that he was looking through the binoculars and he just saw a whole load of just emptiness, which is why he then sits back and just looks really depressed because he starts to lose hope and think, I'm just so in the middle of nowhere that there's just nothing there. And I don't know if I managed to get this across, but hopefully I did. And here was a scene that I had planned out in my head for ages. It was going to be quite an emotional scene. I don't know if it came across that way. Where he's threatening to shoot himself. He's really starting to lose hope, and then he just in the corner of his eye he sees that family photo that's just sitting in his bag, and he just realizes that he still has something to fight for. He still has something to look for. They could still be out there, and that was the main idea of this scene. Yeah. In case you noticed, it does say something inappropriate on the side there. I didn't notice this on filming. I couldn't go back and record it again. I hate it being there. It completely ruins it, but I can't do anything about it now. It is a shame, but got to deal with it. Now, here's the night scene. Quite an important scene, really. Sort of shows the most difficult sort of time for him. Being alone at night is never fun. No one wants to be doing it. So yeah, I thought this was quite an important scene I had to include, despite it being probably difficult to film. As you can see, there's quite a lot of noise on that shot that was shown of him picking up the stick. I did notice that at the time, but it was the only way I could light it enough just to show it. I didn't know if I was going to use the shot in the end, but in the end it turned out that it was quite a necessary thing to include to sort of show how he got the stick in the first place. And then this is probably my favourite shot. I just really like the way it was filmed. I'm not being like cocky or anything. I just, I'll say when I don't like a shot. I will say when I don't like a shot in this short film. There are a lot, but I do really like this one. And I wanted to include an object that he picks up on the floor to have like an emotional meaning. I thought about a necklace, to show like a girl's necklace has just been like left on the floor. She's obviously not there anymore, quite mysterious. And then I also thought of a teddy bear. I feel like this was quite an emotional appeal. Like a little girl would have a teddy bear, a child, and to show that it's sort of just been left abandoned on the floor suggests that kid, is in danger in some way. So I felt like that was quite a good scene. I don't know if it came out that way. Obviously, that was just the next morning. He's just found somewhere in the middle of nowhere to sleep because he's obviously away from that outbuilding that was shown at the beginning. He's just stranded in the middle of nowhere. Now, this is something as well that I could have included more of, is to show him like drinking from this water bowl, because it is a very important, water is the most important thing. Probably could have shown this a bit more, but I did only show it this one time. I did film a few others of him using it, but it didn't end up making its way into the final edit. It just wasn't shot well enough and didn't really fit in how I'd have liked it to. And then that scene you can see there was just, I wanted to have like a build up showing like quick scenes of him just like walking and sort of slowly getting more tired and losing hope. And I felt like having the overlay of him looking at a map and like the photo worked quite well. And then this is the final sort of scene of the short film. I'll let it play out and then I'll talk about it. Probably my least favourite scenes of the whole film. I basically messed them up. Really regret it, but there's nothing I can do about it now. I didn't notice it at the time. And then it's just really difficult when you're very short on time to then go and film it again with the actor. So yeah, just had to be that way. So yeah, just play it through now. So yeah, you might be wondering, is that a tripod leg there? Yes, it is. I somehow didn't notice this when I was doing it. I filmed a couple of these scenes to make sure I got a good one. Little did I ever know that this tripod leg was in all of them, so there wasn't a good one. And you might also be noticing how is blood dripping from him when he's already on the floor. Yep, I do realise that. Nothing I can do about it now. If I'd have had more time and an actor who was willing to dress up and go back there again, then I would have, 100%. But I can't, so I've just got to deal with it being like this. But these are all little things that, despite going wrong on the day, I can look back at and think like, well, I'm definitely not going to do that again. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. If I were to make that same mistake again, then I'm not cut out to do this. But you're always going to make mistakes in a short film when you haven't got a massive budget and a massive crew, and you're on a short time scale to do it. You're always going to make mistakes, especially when you're doing like a big 7-minute 40 short film. So yeah, it's just one of those things that always happens. You just got to deal with it. I'm hoping every project I do now, there's less mistakes being made, so I am improving, and I'm really enjoying this. So yeah, that was the final scene. I'll just let it play out until it's finished, then I'll talk about it a bit more. So yeah, basically that is the end. That is the final version of my short film. Um, I'm not I'm not gonna spend too long on the post production because there's not really too much to talk about. I really don't enjoy doing editing either. Basically, the thing that took the longest in the post production was the audio. I hate editing audio. I really dislike it, but it's one of the things you've got to do. Very important to do it. It's just difficult getting when you have a lot of different audio tracks, creating different sounds. Like, for example, I had the Paranormal Activity sound effect where it's like that low buzzing sound. I had the birds, I had the songs, I had the audio from the actual footage. It's difficult to get them all to sound like the right volume. I just really don't enjoy it. But it's one of the things you've got to do, and I'm just going to talk about it. I feel like this is my best piece of work, editing-wise. Despite not being very good at editing, I can admit I'm not very good at editing. I feel like this is edited okay. All the audio sounds quite in check with it. It's all in time. Not one sort of audio track sounds louder than the other and make it seem unrealistic. And it's the first time, surprisingly, that I actually done colour correction. The previous times I was so worried about just getting it done that I just didn't do it. Biggest mistake, I know. I'm glad I finally done it on this one, and it definitely adds to a scene. Like, some of these shots, if you saw the raw footage, you'd think just look so different to like the edited version, and they definitely look better edited. So the editing process took me about 2 weeks in total, which is a long time. I'm just not good at editing. It takes me longer than probably everyone else to do the editing stage because I'm just not good at it. So that was the final bit I done on the short film, and then it was just printing everything out and getting everything in the binder ready to hand in, and then doing the presentation, which I will talk a little bit about. Obviously, no one likes talking in front of, not many people like talking in front of, people. It's awkward. I feel like I've done what I had to do in the presentation. Next year, I know it's graded, so I'll definitely spend more time on it and perfect it and make it less awkward and sort of bare minimum. But yeah, that was the last sort of thing I've done on this project. I've been doing vlogs all the way through. They will all be uploaded on the link that I posted. This will obviously be uploaded on that as well. And then I'm basically doing this evaluation now, which is where I'm up to. So I guess this is a good time to finish. I guess a final conclusion of the whole project. Overall, I feel like it was a success. I feel like I've done enough to get myself past, hopefully. And I've definitely done a lot more work than I'd done in any previous projects, and definitely felt like the final outcome was better than any previous project. Talking about what could be improved, I definitely need to get a bigger crew. I always feel like before I do it that I can just do it by myself, but you do need that one more person just to look over things and just check that every shot's turned out alright. As you can see, like that last shot was rubbish, it was ruined because I was doing everything myself. I was filming while having to put the blood onto the piece of paper, and it's just difficult to like get everything going right, especially when you're limited on time. So all these little things, I can improve on. Next project, I'm definitely going to get someone else to help out as well as the actor. But overall, in total, I feel like this project has went well. I really enjoyed doing it, and yeah, so this is an evaluation for the final major project, and I am finished. Thank you for listening / watching. Goodbye.